Hashem bring them home, the shalom and the karov, and the schus of our holy soldiers, may they be successful. B'chol ma'asei yedei. And we'll say with that, let us begin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shakol niyeh b'dvaro. Amen. Perfect. All right, the most say. Let's begin. Today's daf is Samech Daled. Right? Yeah, Samech Daled. Good. Correct? Good. All right, fantastic. All right, so we left off. I don't know when was the last daf we did, about a week ago. Feels like. All right, Baruch Hashem on. Thank you. Okay. All right. So it says we're picking up on the bottom of Samech Gimel Amud Beis 63b. We left off. Amrav Yehuda Amarav, which is 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 lines up from the bottom. We'll say some really incredible Gemaras ahead of us today. Amrav Yehuda Amarav. Here we go. Amrav Yehuda Amarav. Yotin hayu Yisrael ba'avodos kochavim she'im b'mamish. Klal Yisrael always knew that avodah zara, there wasn't really anything to it. But say this is such a profound Gemara, because a lot of times when we see these sugyas and we see these Gemaras about avodah zara, and we wonder to ourselves, like, what is going on with this? How could it be that Klal Yisrael is worshiping avodah zara? So Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rab, the truth is, Klal Yisrael knew that avodah zara, there's nothing really to it. Nothing really to it. So why did they worship it? So why did they worship avodah zara? Avodah zara was a matir. Avodah zara was what enabled Klal Yisrael to go ahead and, in this case, engage in immorality. Or to say a little bit differently, Rav Shmuel Hirsch brings down, he says, what is the fundamental difference between avodah zara and avodas Hashem? Wherein lies the distinction between idolatry and the service of the Ribbon Shalom? And Rav Shmuel says something amazing. He says, in Yiddishkeit, the avodah is to make ourselves in Hashem's image. Avodah zara is make God in your image. What avodah zara says is, decide what you want to do in life, and then create a framework which justifies all the different things that you want. So I'll say that's a lot of how, contemporarily, a lot of how all of these isms, right, begin. Right? All these isms begin by people deciding that they want a different code of morality. They want to engage in a whole bunch of different things. So they create a system. You good? Yeah. Good. They create a system. They create a system which allows them ultimately to do the things that they want to do. The whole kunz of avodas Hashem is that life doesn't begin by deciding what do I want. Life begins by deciding what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. It's like the Ramchal says in his introduction. The Ramchal says that there's a fundamental shayla that a yid has to ask himself. What's the fundamental shayla? Ma chovaso ba'olamo. What is my obligation in this world? Not what I want to do when I grow up. Not what makes me happy. Not how do I feel like, what do I want out of life? What is my obligation? Because as a yid, I have a very simple obligation, which is to serve the Ribono Shel Olam and to fit myself into his box, not to go ahead and fit him into my box. Fundamentally so. So if he says in the name of Rab, the entire kunz of avodah zara was to justify a whole system of errant behaviors. Incredible. Master Misharshia. So I will say, here's what's interesting. So according to Yehuda Rav, the whole chap is, Yidden never really believed in avodah zara. They never really wanted avodah zara. That's not what they wanted. Right? At the end of the day, what they simply wanted was arayos. They just needed a system which would allow for them to go out and do what they wanted. So now comes Master Misharshia. So Misharshia is a kasha. B'schor b'neihem is b'chosam. B'malazar ka'adam shishlo ga'aguin al b'no. So here's the issue. Yet again, the pasuk describes the Jews' connection to avodah zara, and the way it describes it is b'schor b'neihem is b'choseim. Rabbi Lazar says that the Jews loved avodah zara like a father loves his son. So that seems to be a pretty intense connection to avodah zara. So what are you talking about? So the Gemara says, no, basar da'avikubei. You're right. See, in the beginning, when we first started worshiping avodah zara was only a mechanism to allow us to do what we really wanted to do. But we really didn't believe it. We didn't believe it. It was just a matter, just allowed us to do. Then what happens? Spend enough time doing anything, and what occurs? It grows on you. It grows on you. So basar da'aviku means after we became attached to avodah zarah, then unfortunately, again, we really actually began to believe in it. Tashma, v'nasati pigrechem al pigrei gilulechem. Amar Eliyahu Atzadik. So let's listen to this. Amar Eliyahu Atzadik hayim mechazer al tefuchei rav shebirushalayim. So we'll say Eliyahu Atzadik. This is actually very interesting. See, Eliyahu Atzadik, which is also Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Atzadik was going ahead and literally helping out those who were bloated by famine in Yerushalayim. So Yerushalayim again was plagued by famine. This is when we were under siege. So Eliyahu Hanavi was going ahead and helping out all of those who were suffering from famine. One time he came across a child, and the child Nebuch was bloated from hunger, and like laying in a garbage dump. Eliyahu says to the child, "Tell me, child, what family are you from?" And the child said, "Oh, I'm from a particular family." So Eliyahu said, "I'm surprised. I thought that entire family had died out." And this child said, "I am the last remaining member of this family." So Eliyahu says to the boy, he says, "Tell me, if I'm willing to teach you something, right, that will save your life, are you willing to learn it?" So the child will say, the boy said, "Of course. Who doesn't want to live?" Amar b'chol yom Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. So Eliyahu Navi says to the boy, he says, all you need to do is every single day say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Just say that every day and you'll live. Amar lo, top of Samach Daled. Amar lo has. So the boy said to Eliyahu Navi, listen to this. The boy said to Eliyahu Navi, shh, has means be quiet. The boy didn't want Eliyahu Navi to say the name of Hashem. The boy, he believed in Avodah Zarah. He didn't want anything other than Avodah Zarah. Shala haskir b'shem Hashem, shalo limdu aviv v'imo. So ultimately, again, so can you imagine this? What I was saying? Eliyahu Navi is telling this boy who's dying of hunger, right? Child, I'm going to teach you something that's going to save your life. Just say after me, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And the boy was so conditioned to worship idolatry from his parents that when Eliyahu Navi said Hashem, the boy didn't recognize the name. He's like, that's not our God. We worship a different God. And he silenced Eliyahu Hanavi. What did he do? Miyat hotzi yirasa mecheko umechabko menashka. The little boy took out the avodah zarah from his shirt, and he began to go ahead and kiss it and hug it. Ad shenifka kreiso v'nafla yirasa la'aretz v'nafal hu aleha. Until ultimately, again, he died from famine. Literally translated, his stomach exploded. Right, his avodah zarah fell to the ground, and he fell on top of his avodah zarah. L'kayim hashenemar v'nasati pigreichem al pigrei gilulechem. So I will say, so again, you see from here that again, the Jews were very connected to Avodah Zarah. So how can you say that we just worshipped Avodah Zarah for utilitarian purposes? Clearly we believed in it, to which the Gemara says, no, basar da'avikube. As we said before, originally when we first started with Avodah Zarah, it was only to justify an errant lifestyle. But once we got into it, and ultimately again, we clung to it, we clinged to it. We became very connected to it and actually began to believe in it. I just point out something very interesting. If you notice, by the way, how does it refer to Eliyahu over here? It refers to him as Eliyahu HaTzadik. That's not the normal appellation, right? Normally it's Eliyahu Hanavi. So what's the pshat? We'll say, obviously, calling someone a tzaddik is a higher level than Navi. So what's the pshat? Because what is Eliyahu doing over here? What is he doing here? He's helping another Jew. So it's great to be a Navi, but it's even greater to be a tzaddik. And how do you become a tzaddik? When you help your fellow Yid. That's what it means to be a tzaddik. People often think that tzidkus means to work on yourself. Tzidkus means to go ahead and work on your own ruchnius, which is absolutely true. Every person has to work on their own ruchnius. But Eliyahu Hanavi becomes Eliyahu HaTzadik. When he sees a child in distress, he stops everything and he lends a helping hand. The path to personal piety, the path to righteousness, the path to tzidkus, is not one that is paved by working on oneself. The path to tzidkus is paved when you take the time to help out the other. Incredible. Tashma. Vaizaku b'kol gadol Hashem Elokehem. My Amar. So we'll say the pasuk says they'll call out in a great voice to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, their God. What is being said? Rabbi Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Vitim Rabbi Yonasan, bye. We'll say this is a ridiculous Gemara. So listen to this. The Klal Yisrael called out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and they said, bye. What's bye? Bye is oi. Ay, woe to us, woe to us. They were lamenting the Yetzer Hara. And they were saying that the Yetzer Hara, specifically for Avodah Zarah, is so incredibly overwhelming. So overwhelming. And it's almost as if we don't really have any ability to combat it. It's this Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah that has destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. The Kaya Lehechale, the Katlinu Litzadike, caused the death of Tzadikim, Vaglunu Yisrael Me'arayu, and we've been exiled from our land. Va'adayin hu mirakid beinon, and still this Yetzer Hara mamish is dancing between us. Klum yavisalon ela lekabule be agura lo ihu ba'inon v'lo agre ba'inon. So also listen to this. So Chazal Davin and Sechach Baruch Hu. The only reason you gave us the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah is to get schar. So Chazal Baruch Hu, I'll make you a deal. Make you a deal. You keep the Yetzer Hara, and we're willing to forego the schar. So you see this, by the way, you see examples of this. We saw like Gemara's like this in Maseches Brachos, if you remember again, where ultimately again there were tzaddikim who were suffering, and they said, Baruch Hu, the only reason you visit suffering upon us is to give us schar. You know what? You keep the suffering, you can keep the schar also. You gave us the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah. Thank you. To get schar, why don't you keep the Yetzer Hara? And the truth is, again, we're happy to forego the schar. So the Gemara says, Basar da'avigu. Basar da'avigu be yasri tlasiyam b'tanisa boy rachami v'nafalu piska mirakia dahavikasev ba emes. But a second wide line. So Chazal, they decided that the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah had just become too destructive and gotten too out of hand. So they fasted. They fasted for 3 days. And after the fast for 3 days, a patak, a little note came down from Shamayim. And what did it say on the little patak? What did it say on the note? Emes, truth, which was a way of saying, HaKadosh Baruch Hu saying to the rabbis who were davening, I heard your request, what you're saying is good, and I understand that it is time to remove the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah. Am Rabbi Chanina, Shma Mino, Chosamol HaKadosh Baruch Hu Emes. See from here ultimately again that the signature of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Emes. That the Rebbe Shalom again, the Rebbe Shalom is Emes. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends down this note from Shemaim, Emes, meaning, okay, what you're saying is good, what you're saying is correct, and now at the end of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give in to their request. So I'll say, so what happened? Here we go. Nafak keguria denura mibeis kodesh hakadoshim. The Yetzer Hara for, you're supposed to get ready for this. The Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah. Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah came running out of the Holy of Holies. So remember again, just so you understand, this was during the times of the Beis HaMikdash. So we'll say again, during the times of the So first of all, just in general, how incredible is it to learn a Gemara about the Beis HaMikdash when we sit here together in Yerushalayim, Yer HaKodesh, just a few steps away from where the Bayis Shlishi is going. People say, do you understand? If we just had another couple of hours of sleep, you'd be falling off your chair right now, right? All right? I would say, it's just saying like, so do you understand like what it means to be learning Torah together in Yerushalayim? Do you understand what this means? Do you understand what Jews throughout the millennia would have given to be in this spot? How many tears were cried throughout the ages for a Jew who would have given anything just for a glimpse of Yerushalayim, Yer HaKodesh, just to see it. And here, not only are we seeing it, not only are we staying in it, but we're learning Torah here. So now again, Mamish the Gemara. So what happens? So they daven for the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah to be removed. So the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah, let's listen to this. So the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah now is going to be removed from Klal Yisrael. So what happens? It took on the form of a fiery lion cub. A fiery lion cub. And that fiery lion cub ran out from the Kodesh HaKadoshim. It ran out from the Holy of Holies. So we'll say, so Amar Luhu Navi, Amar Luhu Navi the Yisrael, Hainu Yitzra da Avodah Zarah. That's it. Right over there, that fiery lion cub, that is the Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zarah. That's it. Grab it. The Gemara says, Ba'adi de Katav Sila, Ishtamit Ben Semine, as they were wrestling. Can you imagine this? As they were wrestling the Avodah Zarah, the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah. The fiery lion cub. So what happened? A hair came off of the lion cub. And again, the lion cub began to cry out. Amru, so now the Chazal said, what should we do? Because again, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has rachamim on everything. Dilma mishmaya merachame aleh. Maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu was going to take compassion on the lion cub because it's in pain, right? One of its hairs fell out. Maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu was going to take compassion on it and release it. Amar Le'navi, Shajua Bedura Da'avra, V'kisua Ba'avra D'Shayef Kala. Quick, grab it, put it in a cauldron of lead, cover it with a covering of lead, because that'll mute the cries of the lion cub. Dichsev, Vayomer Zos Harasha B'Yashlech Osal Tol Cha'ifa, V'Yashlech Chesavena Al Feres Apia. So we'll say, so I just want to pause here for just a second. Pause here. There's absolutely no way we're getting through this entire daf today. Right? It doesn't matter. It's okay. It's okay. It's not a rush. We always make it through. We always make it through. So we'll say, so again, I just want to understand, where does the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah reside? Where does it live? Where does it live? It lives in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Because we'll say at the end of the day, sometimes all of us have our Yetzer Haras, right? We all have our wants, our desires, our proclivities, our lusts, our inclinations, and we think that those things are tameh, and we think that those things come from an impure place. They don't. They come from the Kodesh HaKadoshim. They come from the Holy of Holies. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us our struggles, not to bring us down, but just the opposite, to give us the opportunity to work on ourselves and to lift ourselves up. Your wants, your desires, your lusts, your proclivities, your Yetzer Haras, those are Kodesh Kadoshim, because it's those struggles that will make you the greatest version of yourself. It's the ability to transcend those things that makes us us. Do you know what life without struggle is called? Life without struggle is called death. Right? You're dead. You're dead, right? If you're not struggling with something, chances are you're dead, or just totally asleep at the wheel of life, right? But same thing, right? Same idea, either way, right? Lemaisa will say, our Yetzer Hara is Kodesh Kadoshim. The Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zarah, it doesn't live in Gehenna, right? It doesn't live in Galus. It lives in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, because it is the holiest of the holy, because it was the Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zarah that gave us the opportunity to see the challenge of our Yetzer Haras is that, we'll say, if we're honest, such a good time to be honest, we don't fight hard enough. We just don't fight hard enough. We just give in. Or when the battle becomes a little bit too acute, we just yield. We just surrender. We don't have to surrender. We never have to surrender. We are so much stronger than we give ourselves credit for. So the Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zarah, like every single other Yetzer Hara that we possess, doesn't live in Gehenna. It lives in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Because the challenges we have, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives them to us only to allow ourselves to become the best version of ourselves. And that's what I will say. That's why when they're wrestling the lion cub, so to speak, the lion cub of the Avodah Zarah, and the little hair falls off, and they're worried about HaKadosh Baruch Hu having Rachmanis, because the Yibam loves the Yetzer Hara. Sounds strange. Why does he love the Yetzer Hara? Because it keeps us moving. Because he created it. Because it will say, the Yetzer Hara is the Ribono Shel Olam's greatest creation, because it is the Yetzer Hara that is the engine of growth. So in that moment when the Yetzer Hara is being wrestled and it lets out a cry of pain, so it's almost as if Chazal are concerned maybe Chashbal was going to take Rachmanos on the Yetzer Hara and allow it to come back to its former glory. And I will say the things we contend with, they're not working against us. They're working for us. Those challenges that are there are only there to make us greater. And all we need to do is get our stuff together, work a little bit harder, and recognize my Yetzer Hara is my best friend in the world. He's really my best friend. He kind of gives me a wink, because more often than not, he gets me to do stuff that I shouldn't be doing. But he's really my best friend in the world, because if I could conquer him, which I can, and if I could overcome him, which I can, that's when I encounter my greatest self. We'll say an incredible Gemara. Incredible Gemara. Let's say.
That was incredible. Yes.
Just take it in. Just taking where we are. All of us are following the news. And it feels like a little bit that it's going to be a little bit of a week of heartbreak. And it feels like there are overwhelming circumstances that are about to drop upon our people. And I will say that's why we have to mechazek ourselves. It's not just the Yetzer Hara that seeks to derail us. It's our enemies. It's sadness, right? Like Rabbi Nachman says, the greatest challenge in life that we face is sadness. Because when a yid feels sad, that's when you lose yourself in the pain and you lose yourself in the despair. And that's Rabbi Nachman says, mitzvah gedola lios b'simcha tamid. And whatever it is, whether it's Yeshua's and Nechamas, or whether it's Levayos, whether it's Besoros Tovos, or whether Chas v'Shalom, it's Nichum Avelim, whatever it is, we got it. And whatever it is, we're going to get through it. And whatever it is, the power of the Yid is always the ability to utilize our circumstances to always become something greater. And if we are here in Eretz Yisrael at this incredible tumultuous time, like we said yesterday at the airport, it means we have something to receive, we have something to get, but we also have something tremendous to give. Let's go right there. Says the Gemara. What happens? Good. So the Gemara said, good. Omri. So Chazal said like this. Hoil veis ratzonu. So now that we see that this is an eis ratzon. Now what does it mean it's an eis ratzon? Now Chazal said like this. Now we recognize that obviously this is an auspicious time. Right? Why is it an auspicious time? Because I'll say, I just want to say, does everyone understand what just happened over here? What just happened in this story? The Yetzirah for Avodah Zarah was just removed. That's what happened. So that's why, by the way, when we look at these Avodah Zarah Gemaras and we're like, what's wrong with these people? Why are they running to worship everything? We can't relate to it because the Yetzirah for this Avodah Zarah was removed from us. That's the Ochap, it was removed. So that's why we can't relate to it in the same way. So now Chazal said, okay, we're on a roll. We got this. So I said, now that we removed the Avodah Zarah, let's go. Let's do this. Let's remove immorality. Right? Why not? We're on a roll. Right? Let's remove the Yetzirah for immorality from us as well. So what happened? The Gemara says, so they did so. So we'll say, so what happened? So they did it. And they were successful. They removed the Yetzirah for immorality from the world. Only one problem. So the Gemara says, Yomi, so here was the issue. The problem is, once they removed the desire for immorality, I will say, that took out all kinds of desire, just basic desire also for just reproduction, procreation. They couldn't find a chicken that was willing to lay an egg. See what I say? That's what he said. Remember again, all of these pushes and pulls and all of these, again, I will say, understand, immorality is a corruption of a natural desire for intimacy, a natural desire for reproduction. So when you take that out of the world, it's true, you take away the negative stuff, but you also remove all of the positive as well. So they could not find an egg. I will say, can you imagine a couple minutes you're going to breakfast and you can't find eggs? The sky's falling. After that. I will say, so again, they couldn't find an egg. So the Gemara says, so what should we do? So the Gemara says, so what should we do? To have half of the Yetzer removed from us? That's not going to work, right? That's not going to work because, again, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't remove half of the Yetzer. Now, this is interesting. What do you mean? HaKadosh Baruch Hu could do whatever he wants. Okay, he doesn't remove half of the Yetzer. Whatever. We'll come back to this in just a little bit. So the Gemara says, look here, Lahavi. So what they did, literally, again, they blinded the eye of the Yetzirah for immorality, and at least it had a partial benefit. What was the partial benefit? I was saying that a person doesn't have a desire for incest. Okay, it's helpful, right? Or I was going to say, right? So right? And that's so. In other words, this is one of those things, right? We read these arayos on Yom Kippur, right? And one of the great things about the Kriyana on Yom Kippur afternoon is most of us, I think, see that Kippur, we say to ourselves, I feel like I got this one down, right? Like, in other words, like, okay, Baruch Hashem, I desire a whole bunch of stuff. Not that. So why is that? Because Chazal were successful in being able to remove at least that base of the basis level of immorality. That a person desires a whole bunch of stuff. But at least when it comes to incest, that's not something that we desire. Incredible. So we'll say, so back to Avodah Zarah. So we'll say, this is incredible. So just to understand, interestingly enough, and this goes back to what we were saying before, every Sahara that we have has the ability to derail, but also has many positive uses and applications as well. So they couldn't go ahead and remove the desire for immorality, because embedded in that is the natural and healthy and proper and kaddish desire for intimacy. but they were able to blunt it in some way to at least remove the basest urges of that immorality. For instance, okay, sorry, so we'll say there was a story of a non-Jewish woman who was very ill. Amra im tamorahi isha michalya telech v'tavo l'chalav l'zar shebaolam. So we'll say, so what did she do? And this is incredible. What did she do? She made a Kabbalah. Now we'll say, by the way, I just want to point out how incredible this is. You see from here again, importance of making a Kabbalah. So she made a Kabbalah. And she said, now, interesting Kabbalah. She says, if I get better, if I heal, I promise I will worship every single avodah zarah in the world. Now, wrong kind of Kabbalah, right? But definitely good intentions. Good intentions. So what happens? So the Gemara says, Baruch Hashem, so she was healed, and she ended up worshiping every single avodah zarah in the world. Even she gave the Pa'ar, when she got to Baal Pa'ar, so they got to Baal Pa'ar, right? So she's making her rounds. She's making her rounds, and she says to the priest of avodah zarah, tell me, how do you worship this idol? So what happens? Amrullah, so it's Amrullah, I said to her, Ochlin Shradin, Vishos and Shechar, so you eat beets and you drink beer. So apparently that's a combustible combination, right? And when you do that, this may come in handy for some, over the course of Yarchekala, right? So the mice again, beets and beer, and that's gonna cause the bowels to move. Umasrizin befanel. So I'll say, see, interesting enough. So we spoke about Baal Pa'ar many times. So apparently, Baal Pa'ar was that you worship by defecating on the idol. So apparently, so there's defecation, but like Hiddur mitzvah for Baal Pa'ar was like, what's the right lashon? Labor Day, right? When it's like Hatzig and Labor Day, like when it's like a shtickle eruption, right? That's like apparently that's the Hiddur mitzvah. So again, if you could walk in there after eating beets and drinking beer, and you mamish like erupt in front of the idol, that's like that's Hiddur mitzvah. So Amra, so this lady hears this. And after all of her avodah zarah journey, she says, "Mutav shetachzai isha lechoya v'lo tavod avodah zarah bekach." Right. So she said, "You know what? Nah, I'm not gonna. You know what? I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna pass on this one. I'd rather get sick again, right, than have to worship avodah zarah like this." So the Gemara says, "V'lo tavod avodah zarah bekach." Atam beis Yisrael inon kain hanitzmodin about. So again. So ultimately, I just want to point out. Just say, think about this. Where does a form of worship like this come from? Right? In other words, avodah zarah, you can hear it. Okay, we can't relate to it because the Yetzirah was removed from us now. But Lamaisa Baal Pa'ar, out of all the avodah zarahs that we've encountered, where do you get this? I just want to point out Rabbi Soloveitchik makes an interesting observation. Rabbi Soloveitchik says, it's not so crazy. They'll say, we say a bracha after we use the bathroom. Right? We say the bracha Asher Yatzar. Why? Because we recognize the godliness in the ability for the body to work the right way. When a person goes and uses the bathroom, we recognize, again, if something that's open closes up, Dr. Rosenblum, right? Something that's open closes up, something that's closed opens up, right? It's as simple as that. If something's supposed to be open and it's closed, something that's closed and opened, all Gehenna breaks loose, right? So Lamaisa, again, we also make a bracha. So again, avodah zarah, will say, if you notice, by the way, every single avodah zarah really is a very nuanced corruption of actually some important yesod that we have in Yiddishkeit. But at the end of the day, the woman says, like, you know what, I'm not doing this. The Gemara says, Atem beis Yisrael eno kain, hanitzmodin leba'al pa'ar, kitzemet pasil, v'atem hadvekim Hashem Elokeichem, kishtei tmaros hadvukos zubazu. So we'll say, so again, but you Klal Yisrael are not like that. Rather, again, even though you worship avodah zarah, ultimately, again, you weren't so attached, right? You were just generally attached to Baal Pa'ar. But when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, again, we cling to HaKadosh Baruch Hu like two dates, Shiva Saminim, like two dates that cling to each other as well. Isha. Here, what the Gemara is trying to show is like this. Even when Klal Yisrael worshipped idolatry, we were never fully bought in. We were attached. Like a woman wears a bracelet, So the bracelet is on her wrist. It's on her, right? But it's not firmly attached. So that was like Klal Yisrael with Avodah Zarah. In other words, so we're there, where we're doing it, but we're not. But yeah, when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Vatem Hadvekim, we cling to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You see, I will say, even when a Yid worships Avodah Zarah, and even when a Yid goes off the straight and narrow, at the end of the day, whatever else we're doing, we're kind of only dabbling in it. Our dvekus, our clinging, our connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always the primary part of our relationship. Incredible. Tarabanan. Maisa Bisafta ben Elam. This is a person's name. There was a guy by the name of Safta ben Elam. Shehiskir Chamoro lechneachris. He rented out his donkey to a non-Jewish woman. So he rented out his donkey. So what happens? So the lady's traveling. She gets to Baal Pa'ar. Amrlo, she said to him, Hamtein ad shekarnes ve'etzei. Ad shekarnes ve'etzei. So she says, you know what, I want to make a detour. I want to worship some Pa'ar on the way. Right? So just wait for me over here. Okay. Amrlo. So she goes in, she comes out. Then the Jewish guy who's leading the donkey, he says, Af'at hamtini ad shekarnes ve'etzei. So he says to her, you know what, you went into bar, let me make a quick pit stop. By Pa'ar also. Right? What happened? So she says to him, V'lo Yehudiato? She says to the guy, to the donkey driver, aren't you a Yid? People say sometimes we need other people to remind us. V'lo Yehudiato, aren't you a Yid? How are you worshipping Baal Pa'ar? So he says to Amrullah, Uma ichpas leich, mind your business. Right? So what does it matter to you? So we'll say, watch this. Nichnas, Pa'ar b'fanav. So we'll say, so what happened? The Jew goes in, he does his business, right? Baal Pa'ar, defecates on the idol. But listen to this, he had an interesting kunz. The kinoch bechotmo. Then I will say, okay, he wiped himself on the nose of the Avodah Zarah. Right? So again, a little hidden mitzvah over here. And I will say, now Bepashtos, he was actually trying to do something disrespectful to the idol. And what happens? The priests of Pa'ar are there and they're like, oh, mamish, look at this guy. We've never seen someone who has worshipped the idol with such zrizos, such amkos, right? Such islavos. He wiped himself on the nose of the Aykaskalan residents over here, right? Right? Let me say, they could not believe what they were seeing in front of their eyes. Incredible. So now, based on this, the Gemara says that, so apparently, this Jew was actually trying to debase the Baal Pa'ar. But the Gemara says it doesn't work because, again, if you defecate on Pa'ar, even though your intention is to debase the idol, but because that is the mode of worship, you're chayiv for Avodah Zarah. So you can't do that. Similarly again, Hazorik Eben Lamarkalis, Hareza Avodaso, Afagav the Mechavi and the Mirgame. So for example, say the Markalis. How do you worship Markalis? You throw a stone at it. So if you throw a stone at Markalis, but your intention is to debase the idol, so Lamaisa, again, you're still chayiv for that because that is the mode of worship. Rav Menashe have a ka'azil lebeit Tarsa, Amr la Avodah Zarah hu dekai hacha. So what happened? Rav Menashe one time went to Bar Tarsa. They told him, oh, there's an Avodah Zarah here. So what did he do? Shakal pisa shadabe. He took a clod of earth and he threw it at the idol. Amr lo Markalasu. So they said to Rav Menashe, it's Markalis. You just threw a stone at Markalis. Now again, Rav Menashe's intention was what? To debase the idol. But it turned out that what did he do? He actually worshipped it. Not intentionally, but he worshipped it. Amr lahu, Hazarek Evan Lamarkalis Tanan. So Rav Menashe ran to the base and said, what should I do? Amr Hazarek Evan Lamarkalis Tanan. Afagav the Mechav Lamirgame. Menashe, you're like a shtickle in trouble over here because Lamaisa, we understand your intention was to debase the idol, but Lamaisa, at the end of the day, you went ahead and you worshipped it. He said, okay, no problem. I'll go back and I'll remove the stone. I'll remove the stone that I threw. So no, you can't remove stones from Markalis either, because if you remove stones from Markalis, then what? Then Lamaisa, if you remove it, you make room for more. So apparently part of the avoda of Markalis was to throw the stone, and then again after a certain point, the stones accumulate. So removal of the stones is also part of the avoda zara. So you can't do that as Rabbosai. So what do you see here? What's the most haskell in this? What's the most haskell? Be careful when you throw stones. Because sometimes once you throw stones, it's a little bit difficult to take them back. And I would say, and again, the sugya, kind of how we began and how we ended was the same way. Elio, what is Elio called? Elio was called the Elio at Tzaddik. Why is it called a Tzaddik? Because the greatest tzidkus is when you reach out to your fellow Jew. How does the sugya end? Be careful when you throw stones. Because we'll say at the end of the day, when you throw stones, you often can't take them back. Once it's thrown, it's done. We'll say, I'm sure everyone picked up on it by Rabbi Asher Weiss. Again, clearly he has his feelings about, certain segments of Klal Yisrael not saying Tehillim after davening, or perhaps not having the right empathy for the hostages, or for the soldiers, or for the war. And I will say, but in general, you have to be careful about the stones that you throw, whether they be actual stones or verbal stones. Because once you throw it, and once you say it, it's virtually impossible to walk it back. Like Shlomo Melech says, what's the lashon of the pasuk? Ace the shlach avon and beleis, ace liknos avon. I forgot the exact lashon in Koheles, but Shlomo Melech has this lashon as well. There's a time to throw stones and there's a time to collect stones. Be careful with how you throw the stones, whether actual or verbal, because once you throw it, you often can't take it back. Incredible. Mishnah. Hanosei mizar l'molech. So let's go back to just for a few more minutes. Hanosei mizar l'molech. So we'll say a person gives, now again, nu avodah zara, molech. Molech, I will say, was child sacrifice. So now again, we're going to get into it over here. Hanosei mizar l'molech. A person gives over his children to molech. Eno chayiv ad shimsor l'molech v'yavir ba'esh. You're only chayiv until a person gives their children literally over to the priests of Molech and walks them in the fire. If a person gave their child over to Molech, but the child wasn't walked through the fire, or it was given over through fire, but wasn't given over to the priests. So what's the halacha? So we'll say, so apparently, in order to be in violation of Molech, you need three things. Number one, Molech was done with children. Number two, you have to give over to the priests of Molech. And number three, the child has to be walked through the fire. Now, again, the exact process we'll see in the Gemara. Katani avodah zara, katani Molech. So it's interesting, I will say, because on one hand, we talked about avodah zara, and now Molech is being singled out. So why is that? The Gemara says, Molech lav avodah zarahi. It's coming to teach us that Molech is not avodah zara. That will say now what does that mean? Disanya. Echad l'molech ve'echad l'shar avodah zara chayiv. So I will say, interestingly enough, so whether a person gave his child over to a molech or to a different avodah zara, he's going to be chayiv. Rabbi Shimon Omer l'molech chayiv shelo l'molech pater. So I'll say what the Mishnah is really highlighting is like this: the only time that giving over one's child is a form of avodah zara is dafka for molech. So giving over one child over, let's say, to Baal Pa'ar, that's not called avodah zara because that's not the way that the particular idol is worshipped. Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Chanina ben Antigonus, Amru Davar Echad. Rabbi Shimon Hada Amran. So Rabbi Shimon, that's what we just said before. Then, namely, again, Molech is unique. Molech is unique avodah zara that is worshipped through giving over of one's children. If a person gives over their child to any other idol, it's certainly not good, right? But Lamaisa, that's not avodah zara. Rabbi Chanina ben Antigonus, the sign of Rabbi Chanina ben Antigonus, Omer, Mipnei ma tafsa Torah lashon Molech. Why does Torah use lashon Molech? What is Molech? What does Molech mean? So the Gemara says, Kol shemlichu aleim afilu tzrar va'afilu kisem. They will say, so one violates Molech if by going in and accepting anything upon themselves as a deity. So we'll say this is a different understanding. But Chanina ben Antigonus has a different understanding of Molech. His understanding of Molech is if you accept any object as a god, like Melech, upon you, that is the avodah zara of Molech. Even a tzurah, even a pebble, even a twig. Rava Amar Molech arai ikabenai. Rava says in reality, whether or not there's such a thing as what we call a temporary or episodic Molech is the point of contention between them. When it comes to Molech, I will say one is only chayiv if he gives his child over to the actual attendants, right, to the priests of Molech. In other words, we'll say there's a process. So let's say if a person just gives their kid over to Molech, that's not the avodah zara. It's giving your kid over to the priests of Molech for avodah zara. Shneimar mizaracha lo sitain lahabir lamolech. Taina Melchabrais that supports this. Yochel havir lo maser. You might have thought that ultimately, if one passed his child through the fires of Molech, but didn't actually give his child over to the priests of Molech, that he would be chayiv. Talmud lomar lo sitain masar lamolech. You have to give over your kids to the priests. What happens if you gave over your child, but he didn't actually pass him through the fires? Maybe you think that he'd be chayiv. You might have thought that Allah might say, if you give over your child to the priests and they pass him through the fire, but not from Molech, that you'd be chayiv. What happens if you gave over your child to the priest, but he passed him through, but not through fire? He'd be chayiv. V'lemar lahalon lo yimatzi b'cha ma'avir b'no bito ba'ish. Ma'lalan ba'ish, af kan ba'ish, u'makan molech, af lalon molech. So I'll say, so bottom line, what the Gemara just taught us is, in order to be chayiv for giving your child over to Molech, you need three components. Number one, have to give over to the priests of Molech. That's number one. Number two, ultimately, again, there has to be fire involved. And number three, the child actually has to be walked through the fire. Now, what that actually walking through fire actually looks like, Emirats Hashem will see in a little bit. Hever called Zaro Potter. We'll say, if you passed all of your children through Molech, you're Potter. Why? Shene Amar Mizaracha. Because the blushing of the pasuk is ultimately, again, you pass your child of or from amongst your offspring, not all of your offspring. Below called Zaracha. Rashi said, Havira Suma Mahu. What happens ultimately, again, if a person went ahead and has a child who's blind, and they passed their child who's blind through the fires of Molech? What's the halacha? Or Yoshin Mahu. What happens if the child is asleep? So I will say, so again, in these situations, the child is not aware of what it is that's occurring. They're blind, they're asleep. Are you chayiv from Molech? Mahu. Ben Beno, Ben Bito, Mahu. What happens if you pass your grandchildren through Molech? What's the halacha? So Tifshot Miachada, we can answer at least one of these. Disanya, Ki Mizaro Nasan LaMolech. The pasuk says you give up your offspring to Molech. Ma Tamil Omer. Rabbi said, what do we learn from this? Lefi shneimar lo yimatzeh b'cha ma'avir b'no bito ba'eish. Eini ela b'no ubito. I only know son and daughter. Ben b'no ben bito minayin. How do we know even grandson or granddaughter? Tamil Omer b'sito mizaro. So we see from here that if you give any of your offspring, whether it's your children or your grandchildren, halacha l'maisa, again you're chayiv from Molech. Tana. Pasach bechiz mizaro, besalek besito mizaro, joshach rinahu. So also the Gemara says it begins with kizaro and it begins ultimately besito mizaro, different drasha which we'll see. Zaro, ainly zara kosher. So we'll say the pasuk tells me zara. I only know that you're chayiv for kosher offspring. Zara pasal minol. And how do I know that even if a person passes his invalid offspring through Molech, that he's still going to be chayiv? Tamlomer besito mizaro. Okay. So Rabbi Yehuda says like this: you're only chayiv. We'll say if what? If you go ahead and you pass your children through derech havara. Also, actually, what we're going to do is we'll stop over here for today. So this next sugya, we'll say this next sugya ultimately again teaches us how Molech was actually done, how he went ahead and it was passed through the fire. So we'll say, and again, hopefully tomorrow we'll have a little bit more time in Hashem to be able to go through the daf. We're also going to learn more today. We're not finished. So also, if you want, you can take your packets with you. We still have to get in some tzidkas atzadik in Hashem today. So we'll do that hopefully in the base medrash in Sderot a little bit. We'll say, and again, use this time. Usually when it comes to Daf Yomi, we usually don't have a lot of time to be able to chazer. But now that we're in Yachikal, there's an opportunity to chazer the daf, especially tremendous yisodos from today's daf, even more that Amir we'll get to in further stops. Tremendous chusma with all the Yerushalayim breakfast, and I guess is Zevi here? He's outside. Okay. But so I think our goal in Mirat Hashem is to leave at what time? 8:30. Okay. So breakfast, Mirat Hashem. Stay tuned. Shkach, everyone.